Thank you for joining me, viewers. Dr. J.W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia. We're in the Watchtower study edition for November 2019, paragraphs 1 and 2, according to 1 Peter 4, 7 through 8, what will help us cope with adversities? There's signs, because they say we need good friends during the Great Tribulation, there's signs that are going to take place before the tribulation begins. One of those signs is there'll be a world leader that brings peace to the world like no other. But he'll be assassinated. He'll be mortally wounded in front of the world, so it'll probably happen on TV. There's all sorts of signs. So the tribulation isn't going to hit you if you're a Bible observer and world observer of world events. It's not going to hit you with too much surprise, but at this stage there's no sign of that taking place as yet. So the guessing game can be taken right out of when the tribulation is going to happen. But back to this article, which has been quite a circus really, considering that Jehovah Witnesses say true friends show love at all times, and we got lost in a few presentations there about shunning. Paragraphs 1 and 2, according to 1 Peter 4, 7 through 8, what will help us to cope with adversities? Well, one of the things that will help Jehovah Witnesses cope with adversities is to accept people outside their organisation. I know they have trouble accepting those in the organisation that don't want to bend the knee to the organisation's needs and wants, but they need to stop undermining governments. They need to stop undermining worldly people. As I said before in one of my last talks, the Jehovah Witnesses that I was speaking to down in the park the other day, women of all things, I was shocked, said they can't wait for Armageddon because people that have used Jehovah's name in vain will be dealt with. Look, viewers, I have to be honest with you, I've never heard anything like that. All the Christians I know, they are hoping Armageddon and the Great Tribulation is postponed for as long as possible. But not the Jehovah Witnesses. They want vengeance on the people that aren't Jehovah Witnesses, basically. So let's just read this. They've got a picture here as we're using for the background of the series, where people are huddled in an attic, obviously hiding from this kind of thing that I'm showing you here. This is real life. This is real footage from the Russian scandal, put up by JW Russia Video. It's part of their propaganda. You can watch that while I read. But this is the picture they're painting, the Jehovah Witnesses, of trying to dodge this kind of thing. Now, they're not going to dodge this kind of thing for several reasons. The Russian government went over their articles linguistically and decided that theologically their theology is corrupted and extreme. And I agree with that, because I was really, really shocked. As a simple Australian conscientious observer of religion, I was extremely shocked the way in which those Jehovah Witness women were trying to bring on Armageddon for the destruction of people that won't become Jehovah Witnesses. I couldn't believe their attitude. As we move deeper into the last days, we may face severe adversities. For example, after one election campaign, a country in Western Africa was torn apart by social unrest and mob violence. We have social unrest and mob violence happening all over the world. It's irrespective of the position of the Jehovah Witnesses. For over 6 months, our brothers and sisters could not move about freely because they were in a combat zone. My advice to people that are in combat zones, be Jehovah Witnesses or not, is to flee. And the governments will tell people to flee. If there's something going on in Western Africa, the Australian consulate will warn the Australians in that area to leave. Now, if the Jehovah Witnesses are ignorant enough not to leave, then they deserve everything they get. The Russian government has banned the Jehovah Witness organisation as extreme. Now, this isn't the first time it's happened to this cult. Now, if they want to, in one of a leaked video, they're in their private leaders meeting, hierarchy, top brass meeting, they said that Russia's taking on a mountain if they think they're going to take on the J-dubs. Well, be very careful what you say, Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, because Russia just does not muck around. Now, if you're in a combat zone, honestly, if there's bombs going off around you, what are you going to do? Stand there with a Jehovah Witness cart? Is that what you're going to do? Or several of you, if you don't want to do it on your own? Are the brothers and sisters going to stand there with you? No, I honestly believe the Jehovah Witnesses, like anybody else, are going to run and get out of there. And if you don't, you get what you deserve. What helped them to cope with such hardships? Now, this is more than hardship. This is what would you say? This is crisis. This is a crisis point. This is a point where you have to get out. If you're not a military person in a combat zone, you need to leave, or you're going to be maimed and killed. This isn't a time of hardship. This has got nothing to do with religious work. This has got to do with intergovernmental or sociological battles. You're not going to stand there with a cart and take them on, are you? So some found refuge in homes of brothers living in a safer area. Other brother reported, in such a situation, I appreciated having friends around me. We were able to encourage one another. Okay, this is what a war zone looks like, viewers. This is graphic footage. You can have a look at this. Well, are you going to think that the Jehovah Witnesses are going to be standing in a war zone with all this sort of thing within a combat zone? This is real. People die in combat zones. They're not the sort of place that you just stay around. This sort of language is so far from reality, it's not funny. In such a situation, I appreciated having friends around me. We were able to encourage one another to do what? To stay with a cart? Look. No, you want to be encouraging one another to get out of there. Get your senses together and get out of there. When the Great Tribulation strikes, we will appreciate having good friends who love us. You'll appreciate more than that. You'll be trying to stay alive. So it is urgent that we build strong bonds of friendships now. Now, the problem with this is, and let's just face it, the Jehovah Witnesses don't want to build friendships with people outside their organisation. They don't want to build friendships with people that are not Jehovah Witnesses. Some more Civil War footage. Do you think the Jehovah Witnesses are going to be hanging around there trying to make friends and all the rest of it while all this sort of stuff's going on where they're trying to be missionaries? No. We can learn much from the experience of Jeremiah, whose friends helped him survive during the time leading up to the destruction of Israel. How can we imitate Jeremiah? Jeremiah's got nothing to do with this sort of civil unrest, which is what they're talking about. They're talking about, and they mentioned themselves here in the article, a combat zone. Do you think the Jehovah Witnesses are going to be encouraging one another to stay out there in with the carts in this sort of thing, or hide in homes and stuff? You don't see Jehovah Witnesses helping these people that are fleeing war. You do see the Red Cross and the Salvation Army and all these types trying to get in and help, but you won't see the Jehovah Witnesses organisation get involved in this sort of charitable work. You just won't see it. It's not what they do. So if Jehovah Witnesses want to, play the persecution game for an organisation that's regarded as extreme and a cult, then go right ahead. You're not going to find any example from Jeremiah, because you'll see Jeremiah got his mates to go and do his dirty work. He didn't risk it himself. So I'm going to hand this over. We'll look at some videos. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia. I hope you enjoy the following presentations. Links will be left below.
The daily text for today, Thursday, November 28th, comes from Matthew chapter 2, verse 13, flee to Egypt. And the blurb, the paragraph that Watchtower quotes, talks about how Joseph and Mary had to take Jesus and run to Egypt until Herod died because Herod was trying to kill Jesus. And you know the story. And they apply this in the things that Jesus said about how when they persecute you in one city, flee to another. They apply that to Jehovah's Witnesses and talk about how many witnesses have been persecuted for their faith. They've lost loved ones. They've lost all their possessions. They've had to live in refugee camps. But they keep a positive attitude because they remember that just like Israel's trek in the wilderness, their stay in the camp would eventually come to an end. Jehovah's Witnesses need to be persecuted. Why do I say that? Now, I'm not saying they should be. What I'm saying is they need to be. Watchtower needs them to be. Somewhere in the world, they need them to be undergoing persecution. Again, why do I say that? Because Watchtower theology teaches that we live in the last days of the system of things, that all the governments are under Satan's control, that things are going to get worse and worse and worse leading up to the Great Tribulation in the Battle of Armageddon. If witnesses are not being persecuted, Watchtower can't point to what Jesus said about how his true followers would be persecuted and say, look, we are fulfilling prophecy. So they need persecution. This started all the way back with Joseph Rutherford, who is the second president of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society and the man who started what you now know as Jehovah's Witnesses. Prior to Rutherford, Charles Taze Russell was the first president of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, but Jehovah's Witnesses did not exist. There was a different group called the International Bible Students Association, but they branched off. When Rutherford took over, a lot of them left, and Rutherford created a new religion called Jehovah's Witnesses. Russell, as far as I can tell, was not nearly into the persecution complex in the same way that Rutherford was. And based on my research and studying of Rutherford's history, this need for persecution really started when Rutherford went to prison. Wrongly, it was found, for sedition. In 1918, for 18 months, he was in prison. And when he got out, that's when all of the really anti-governmental rhetoric began in the old publications of Watchtower and Jehovah's Witnesses. That's when the Battle of Armageddon, all the nations fighting in this great war, everybody being under the control of Satan, all this stuff started after Rutherford got out of prison. He was angry about what happened to him, and he had this organization at his fingertips, this giant publishing company, and he was going to use it to spread his message about how evil and wrong all of the governments were. And he did. Some have said that he went so far as to cause witnesses to get arrested on purpose. And what he would do, and this is a fact, he would do this. He would send sound cars, these cars with the megaphones on the top that play loud sermons or whatever. He would send them into neighborhoods late at night. And he would send witnesses knocking on doors late at night in an effort to stir the local community up and end up getting people, witnesses, arrested. Now, these arrests rarely stuck because what they were doing at that time wasn't actually a violation of the law, from what I understand, except in some cases where they were supposed to have a permit and didn't. But they would get arrested, and this would, of course, cause media coverage, because that's very sensational. And it would spread all over the country, and it would be free publicity for Watchtower and for Rutherford. That's what some say. Now, I don't know if he actually did that for that purpose, but given my research and study about the man that was Joseph F. Rutherford, it wouldn't surprise me if he did that in an effort to get free publicity and sell more books. But I don't know for sure, because Rutherford has long since been dead, and I don't know. It was never in the man's head to know. But the simple fact is that ever since Rutherford, Watchtower and Jehovah's Witnesses have fallen out of favor in various governments for various periods of time, including the United States. And right now, the big one is Russia. They're really under assault by the Russian government. And of course, that they really like to play it up that they are. And they need that, because if they're not being persecuted, if witnesses aren't undergoing persecution, then Watchtower can't point to that and say, see, we're fulfilling prophecy. This is exactly what Jesus said was going to happen, and it's happening to us. That makes us the true followers of Jesus, and everything else that we said is true. And anything that anyone says against us, you shouldn't believe it, because that's just another attack from Satan and his propaganda. And this works. I mean, I hate to put it this way, but Watchtower was given a huge gift when Russia started persecuting Jehovah's Witnesses and throwing witnesses in jail and, shutting down kingdom halls and taking their property. That was wonderful for Watchtower, because now Watchtower look at their news items. It's all over the place. Russia, 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 Russia. They're reminding witnesses constantly, look, we're under attack. We're under assault. That makes us the true religion because we're fulfilling prophecy. Watchtower needs this. They've got so much bad publicity from all of the other things that they're doing wrong, the way they're harming people, their doctrines, their policies, all this bad publicity. They need to distract Jehovah's Witnesses away from that and get them to pay attention only to the persecution, so that witnesses think everything else is coming from Satan and it's just propaganda. And this works. I cannot tell you how many witnesses do not know anything about the stuff that Watchtower is up to, because Watchtower tells them to avoid all media that does not put Watchtower and Jehovah's Witnesses in a good light, because they claim it's satanic propaganda, apostate half-truths, whatever. But from a government's perspective, you really have to understand that it's not a surprise that countries where freedom is not very important to the government, the individual citizen's freedom like Russia, that witness rhetoric to them looks seditious, because Watchtower teaches that all governments are under satanic control. Watchtower teaches that all of the religions are the den of Satan. They're all false. And they do not encourage any kind of civil service. They do not encourage military service. They actually are completely against those things. You can't do them and be in good standing in the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses. And for a government that's not a democracy, that puts a lot of stock in the freedom of its citizens to choose how they live and what they believe, they're going to get a lot of negative vibes at best from the government, and in places like Russia, persecution. So it's really not a surprise that this is happening, but it's also exactly what Watchtower wants, in my opinion, to happen, because it's a distraction for Jehovah's Witnesses. It keeps them believing the lies that Watchtower spins about how we're in the last days. And they point to all other religions that haven't fallen out of favor with the governments. And they say, look, see, they're in bed with the governments, and that's why, because they're Babylon the Great, and Revelation says that that's how it was going to be. But what's funny about that, funny isn't the word, what's interesting about that is in Russia, for instance, Jehovah's Witnesses are not the only religion that are under assault, but you never hear about the other religions and how they're being affected in the news releases on jw.org. They only talk about the witnesses. Why? Well, because if it's not just the witnesses and all the witnesses know that it's not just them, well, then maybe it's not because they're God's chosen people that they're being persecuted. Maybe Russia just doesn't like religious freedom. Maybe there's some other cause, but Watchtower never mentions those other religions. They only mention the witnesses in their press releases and news items. It's very sad to me, and it's infuriating that Watchtower and its leaders capitalize on the harm that governments sometimes do to the rank and file Jehovah's Witnesses. I would have no problem at all if the governing body was thrown in prison for all the things that they do and say and the harm that they cause. But it really hurts my heart that the rank and file are harmed by this, because they're just pawns. They're pawns in Watchtower's wicked game of chess. And I hate it. I really do. I love some people that are Jehovah's Witnesses. I have family that are witnesses. I have people that I used to be close to that are Jehovah's Witnesses, that are good people. And I hate to see them fall for this and live in this kind of fear. Watchtower has a lot to answer for. If you agree that they have a lot to answer for, please click like on this video. Please subscribe to my channel. Let me know your thoughts about all this in the comments, because I know some people think that if you're in the organization that's doing these things, you get what you get. I think it's more complicated than that, but I also understand that perspective as well. So subscribe to the channel for more videos and click the notification icon so you get notified when I release new videos. And as always, thanks for watching.